have a 35mm scan of The Exorcist. I wish I did. That would be the holy grail. But I found something almost as interesting. An unofficial fan restoration trying to pull The Exorcist back towards the way it felt when it first scarred the absolute life out of people in 1973. It's not a modern remaster or an extended version, not the cleanest possible image. A reconstruction, a version trying to recover the original theatrical feeling from surviving print transfers. Basically, someone went full Vatican archivist. The strange thing about The Exorcist is that the version you watch now might not feel exactly like the version people saw in 1973. Over the decades, the film has picked up new masters, new color timing, new audio mixes, new logos, new restorations, and the famous extended cut originally marketed as the version you've never seen. And this is where horror fans become extremely normal. By which I mean, not normal at all, because once a film becomes this important, every tiny change matters. The colour, the sound, the logo, the demon flashes, the warmth of the Iraq opening, the blue tint in the exorcism room, the grain, the texture, the feeling that the image might have been handled by human hands instead of polished by a digital priest. This is not just nerd nitpicking. Well, it is, but it's holy nerd nitpicking, because The Exorcist depends on atmosphere. If you change the atmosphere, you change the haunting. The restoration I found comes from Dr. Sapirstein. How the hell do I pronounce that? Let me get it right. Dr. Sapirstein, and it's very openly labelled as unofficial and still a work in progress. And the pitch is exactly the kind of thing that makes people like me immediately sit up like someone whispered original theatrical colour timing. According to the project page, this 2025 restoration is sourced from two different 35mm print transfers, and it aims to reconstruct the original unaltered 1973 theatrical version, and says it restores the original mono soundtrack while avoiding later additions like the spider walk, CGI inserts, altered colours and modern sound changes. Now obviously this is not an official Warner restoration, this is a fan, but that's why it's interesting, because this is someone trying to rebuild the feeling of The Exorcist from the pieces that still exist. And with The Exorcist, that matters a lot, because this isn't just a film where fans are arguing over whether the image is a little too blue. This is a film where colour, framing and every tiny change in a demon flash can affect the whole temperature of the room.
When I touch your forehead, open your eyes. Are you comfortable, Reagan?
Yes.
What makes this restoration fascinating is the mission. It's not trying to make The Exorcist look brand new, it's trying to make it feel old in the correct way. That's the key. The fan restoration is interesting because it admits something official restorations sometimes avoid. The best version is not always the cleanest. Sometimes the best one is the one that feels closest to the original. The project specifically talks about returning to the original colour scheme. It should feel clinical, documentary-like in places, like the evil is happening in a real house. But with The Exorcist, the idea is fascinating because this is a movie where space matters. The room matters. It can change the pressure inside the frame. The restoration notes also mention the infamous non-CGI jump cut of Father Karras' possession imagery being cleaned and restored. Some of its scariest effects were designed to be almost subliminal, flashes, faces, the kind of thing you weren't supposed to process. A restoration like this is interesting because it tries to push those effects back towards feeling sudden again. Because The Exorcist works best when you're not sure what you saw. The original version is scarier partly because it withholds. It doesn't show you the obvious horror. It lets dread build through the doctors, tests, sounds, expressions, behaviour, and a slow collapse of a normal life. The extended version gives you more, but more is not always more terrifying. Sometimes more is just more, and the original theatrical shape has a colder, more controlled cruelty. It doesn't show off, it waits. That's why the project's no spider walk, no CGI inserts, no altered colours, no modern sound changes pitch is so compelling. It's not trying to create the biggest Exorcist, it's trying to get back to the coldest one. So this video is not about saying the fan restoration is officially better. It isn't official, it's a reconstruction, an argument. But that's why it's interesting. They're not just chasing pixels, they're changing mood. Modern remasters can be technically impressive, but The Exorcist is not a film that should be too comfortable in modern skin. It should feel old. That's what makes this unofficial restoration so interesting. It's not just the Holy Grail because it uses 35mm transfers or the open matte. It points towards something bigger. The lost feeling of The Exorcist. All of them circling the same impossible thing, a horror film that still feels cursed because it was never just about what you see. It's about what the image did to the room. The scariest version of The Exorcist might not be the cleanest. It might be the one that still feels like it shouldn't be playing.